A very good evening to all of you.
Good evening, sir.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, everybody.
Good evening. So today we are going to have a small discussion on which I will begin with some of the slides which I have compiled from some of the publication. And I'm sure those who are from social science background, they may have basic idea on what we are going to talk today on that, particularly this topic, social ecology. That's sometimes we can say this social ecology as the interwoven threads of a complex web of life. Because it is combination of the specialization of our understanding of society and ecology. And today is the second class of our third course, socio-cultural system. Yesterday, Dr. Shubhangi has talked on the relation between or the interlinkages of society, culture, sustainability, interlinkages, and trying to, focus on the global pandemic, where we have the issues we are facing today, in this particular from the last 1 year. Now, when we talk about socio-cultural system, in your course material, you'll find out in 4 clear blocks. Block 1 that talk about the culture, society, and environment, how it is interrelated, and what is the concept of culture and society, how culture is created by environment, and how environment created culture, means its interrelation. In some way, when we have an understanding on that, then how the society has changed, change in social changes in terms of when you go through your study material, you will understand that changes of society, that social changes is because of relation between nature and the society in terms of culture, and it is particularly because of that way the resources we are using. And that changes is brought by the indigenous systems and belief. And we have, in that block 3, we have entirely focused on the basic concept of indigenous knowledge system. That is followed by that 4th block, because of the human advancement in their knowledge, we have taken a number of development and pathways that created economic growth, that created social progress. But on the other side, it created another new phenomenon, number of, not only one phenomenon, number of phenomenon like social inequity, unequal world from one place to another. So we need to understand those development pathways from the point of equity and social justice. So this is the brief about a socio-cultural system, where you're going to learn about the basic concept and theory with case studies in India and other part of the world. So when we look into to this topic, why I'm putting this topic is, if you look into the basic skeletal of socio-cultural system, if you look that from a very simple simple perspective, you will understand that. You can understand that is a social ecology, where I want to represent present in this form, that we have another side, we have nature, means resources, and on the side, users society. So these users and the resources, how we are interrelated, how it has become an interwoven threads. That's, we already know it, but we are not able to understand the basic principle behind it. So I have looked into some of the paper by some paper, some units written by famous social ecologists, different social ecologists. So I would like to share those write of those principles, what they explain. from the beginning of human civilization, how it has to look into this modern world. When we look into the term socio-ecology, means the first time our understanding before we started to learn about society or social from scientific perspective. The first term we know is ecology. What is that? Ecology is from two Greek words. One is oikos and logo. The another is logos. That's the meaning of this ecology, the study of home. Cos means home, logos means study of home or living places. So when we talk about the social, then social is derived from word socios or companion. So a society is thus a relationship between companion. If you look into that, where the society stands and where society, the foundation of society is, that is in the nature, indeed. So in the household, in the society, in the art, or so if you look that, then it is in a sense, it is itself a household within the earth household. So the term itself, socioecology, itself reflects that there is a close relation between this society and ecology. And so we have to understand the relation from the perspective of social ecology. And as a member of that household, our interrelations between ourselves or other species or other non-living component, or ecological responsibility as members of the Earth community arises from both our relationship to the interrelated wave of life on Earth, and also from our place as a unique form of nature's and art's expression. The art self-expression indicate that the earth has its own way of, evolution. So as we accept that the responsibility is implied by our role in nature becoming self-conscious, we can begin to reverse our presently anti-evolutionary, the degradation of what we are, doing against nature is anti-evolution, means natural way of, against the natural way of evolution. And at an ecocidal direction, we are going towards a direction that gives a ecocidal phenomenon and begin to contribute to the continuation of planetary nature and social evolution, right? So we have to cooperate the way nature is evolved through our own self-development. So the overriding ethical challenge to humanity, to us, is to determine, first is to determine how we can follow our own path of self-realization as a human community. Because of not able to, understand the self-realization from ethical point of view, we are doing that ecocidal activities of ecocidal, right? At the same time, allowing the entire art community to continue its process of self-manifestation and evolutionary unfolding. One is we have to go in our own part of self-realization as a human community. Other is that we have to look the entire art as a community to continue its process of self-manifestation and evolution unfolding. Means we have to be part of that evolution, right? So here you will find out a crucial link between these two goals. That is the understanding of how the flourishing of life on Earth is constitutive of the human good as we dialectically develop in relation to the planetary whole. We have to understand it's a whole that shows that wave. So a central aspect of the human good is to enjoy and indeed celebrate that relation of the social and ecological unity in diversity. That's what we have repeatedly talked about why there is diversity in biological. Means biodiversity, it is because of the difference of that geologic, because of different geodiversity, landform, because of diversity in the that's geographical diversity, etc. Right? So the social and ecological unity in diversity in terms of the goodness of the universe, a goodness that is most meaningful manifested for us in the form of beauty, richness, diversity, and complexity of life on Earth. So this is what we have to understand, that social and ecological unity in diversity, which we should not brag that, right? So in that way, when we are, developing in our own way, we ourselves imagine something that we can look at as ecological imaginary. So now we can say that we are living in an epoch that is defined above all the dominant economistic institution, means whatever we are doing and whatever we are doing as a dominant species is to bring a economistic growth and developing an economistic institution. So this dominance is exercised through all the major institutional spheres. That's in social organization, in ideology, and economistic imaginary, because we never satisfied. We do not demand our this desires never end. So we always have that economistic imaginary. But the dominant economism is far from simple. It is not a simple way. It is divided into two essential movements which interact in complex and socially efficacious way. One is it is because of what? Productionism. Another is consumptionism. From productionism, what do? We are in the process of production, as you know, we have exploited the nature, its product, and then we have created that the culture of productionism. Then in that, then we started to deliver those products, and that converted into for consumption. That's consumption. These two, productionism and consumptionism, they cannot be inseparable. They are mutually interdependent. So when you look into the lens of sociology, what is happening because of the economistic culture, as you know, two important, movement, essential movement is, one is productionism, consumptionism. That is what we're talking about, right? In this economistic society, it is drives relentlessly towards absolute rationality in the exploitation of natural and human resources, in the pursuit of efficiency of production. So then we started to think about efficiency of production, and we are developing and different techniques, and in the control of markets through research, and in the manipulation of behavior through marketing. So the process from your productionism to consumerism, so it has taken place to this way. So at the same time, we rush it toward a complete irrationality in the generation of infinite desire. What I was talking about, everybody knows this phenomenon. So in the colonization of psyche with commodified images, we have some different psychological, this is one of the reasons we always have infinite desire. In the transformation of the human and natural one into a system of objects of consumption. Now, when we look into the natural world, we always say it has to be natural product is for consumption. We do not look into the boundary limitation of the utilization of that. So we see that in an object of consumption. So most ultimately, materially, in undermining the ecological basis for its own existence. So that brings into undermining the basis, ecological basis of its own existence. That's why we are suffering. So one result of the careful study of the social imaginary is the realization that a decisive movement in social transformation is the development of a counter-imaginary. So if you want to change that, we have to think towards, because we have imagination. If you look into the global perspective, you will say that different nations want to become, economic leaders, right? That is what we are talking about. India may become economic leaders in another 3 years. That's what we are talking about. This is this year. So we have to look, we have to work beyond, against that imagination if we want to bring towards the sustainability. So we need to develop such kind of counter imaginary. So success in the quest of an ecological society. To get an ecological society, for quest for an ecological society should be a imaginary development approach that should depend in part on the generation of a powerful ecological imaginary to challenge the dominant economistic one, right? So and in that process, as you know, we have created the image of the region, and it poses a powerful challenge to the economistic, statist, and technological imaginary. Because we have created that kind of regionalism. Can be the regionalism can be interpreted in different way, right? It can be looked in a positive way. It can be in another in constructive way, another negative way. But this regionalism or regions are very powerful presence that have no clearly, definable boundaries. That means you can define from any of the perspective. It can be on ecological boundaries, it can be in geographical boundaries, it can be social boundary, it can be religion boundary. So these regions can be, we know that can be, because it has no definable boundary, so it can be of ecoregions, georegions, bioregions, ethnoregion, mytoregions, psychoregions, or any other kind. So this regionalism evokes a dialectical imagination that graphs the mutual determination between diverse realms of being. Diverse realms of being. Between culture and nature, unity and multiplicity, between form and formlessness, between being and nothingness. So we have to understand this, right? So the concept of regionality implies an interplay between the overlapping, evolving boundaries of natural spaces and the flowing, redefining boundaries of imaginary spaces. So that is neat, right? The beginning is from our imagination, right? The region is intimately connected to another powerful ecological image, that of the wild. The wild is present in spontaneous aspect of culture and nature in the form of wild culture, wild nature, wild mind. So sometimes, from the poetic point of view, you can see the dreams. You have the dreams, and you never conscious about that, right? So we find it in the living earth and in the process of growth and unfolding on the personal, communal, planetary, and cosmic levels. So we have to link those your wilderness thoughts that's in this personal, communal, planetary, and cosmic levels, right? So the point is not to find wild in any pristine state. That is very important. It is always intermixed with civilization, domestication, and even domination. This sentence reflects how growth of human civilization started. Growth of human civilization because of our imagination. But when your imagination or that is beyond that limit, that created this problem, that what we are suffering. So the discovery of the wild within being or any realm of being means the uncovering of its self-manifestation, its creative aspect, its relative autonomy. So we are thinking then we have another imagination, autonomy. Right? It is the basis for respect for beings, but even more for wander away and essence of the sacred in all things. So the repulse in individualism, then now come individualism of dominant culture appear quite time when civilization subjected to the critique of the web. So then you have that kind of desire, infinite desire, because of the imagination, then comes individualism and dominating one culture to another, right? So the image of the earth as a home, we have, if you tag earth as a home or planetary household, then human as member of the earth community has a great imaginary power. The point is that if the beginning of everything is because of our infinite, that desire, and because of imagination, Now, the solution is also with that. So as we develop greater knowledge of ecological complexity, and as we rediscovered the marvelous richness of place, the Earth image begins to incorporate within itself a rich regional local specificity and become a holistic representation of planetary unity in diversity. So when we have regional local specificity, we have to talk, we have to understand, we have to tag that as a planetary unity in diversity, taking the entire whole world as a home, and we have to use our imagination as imaginary, great imaginary power. So, but unfortunately, the horror of economistic technocratic globalism become increasingly apparent, and as the world is remade in image of the factory, the prison, and the shopping mall, the is dialectical counter image of the earth, it will naturally gain increasing imaginary force. So because of this thing, our imaginary force is going towards another direction, right? So the ecological imaginary can be expanded. So we have to expand our ecological imaginary. What we are talking about, how to bring back our imagination up to towards a ecological. We have to imagine about that ecocentric way. Okay, that's can be linked to cosmic or universal dimension, because all cultures have felt the need of imagine the macrocosm and dimension in relation to the all. For example, if you look into the story of the universe taken from the contemporary cosmology that transform into a culturally orienting narrative, it is the only way of providing in our times what the mythic stories of the universe provided for tribal peoples and for the earlier classical civilization in their time, right? Because cosmology brings you back the need for this society, ecology, that threat of wave of threat. Okay, so through the universe and the art story, people see themselves as part of larger process of development and unfolding of the cosmos. They thus achieve a sense of relatedness to the various living and non-living components of Earth community, right? So if you look from that cosmological point of view, now we have to think we are part of living and non-living components of the communities in the, on the Earth. So this powerful, indeed sublime narratives relativize cultural absolutes and sack dominant imaginary, just as they give new imaginary meaning to human existence, consciousness, and creativity. The point is your imagination has to look, has to bring back towards the direction of ecocentrism, right? Then when we have imagination, the question comes, then from imagination, what we know is we started individualism, regionalism, but then the question comes, we want freedom domination. How freedom domination has to be taken care, how we have to understand that. The larger process of self-realization and unfolding of potentialities have often been described as the emergence of freedom in the history of humanity, the earth, and the universe, because of the freedom. Let us look at the definition of freedom domination from the point of evolution of the species, evolution of society, evolution of the ecology. Right. So as a social ecology, it carries on this tradition, seeks to give an ecological meaning to such a conception of freedom that focuses on the realization of beings' potentialities for identity, individuality, awareness, complexity, self-determination, relatedness, and wholeness. So in this sense, freedom is found to some degree at all levels of being. That is from the self-organizing, self-stabilizing tendency of the atom to the level of the entire universe evolving to higher levels of complexity in generating the new levels of being, right? So this is because of the natural law of freedom and dominance. The evolution of the species, evolution of life was happened. That is we have to understand. In our planetary history, planet freedom can be found in the directiveness of our life takes on increasingly complex forms, including ultimately the possibility of human as complex social beings, attaining their good through a highly developed and respectful relationship to other humans and natural world. This is what the wave of life it is bringing from beginning from your the evolution of life from the single cell organism towards the complicated life. Then you will see it is because of freedom and dominance. This is a natural law. So we need to the realization, understand the realization of such freedom. It requires that humanity attain consciousness of its place in the history of the earth and of the universe. That it develop the ethical responsibility. Now the words ethical come up. The ethical responsibility to assume its role in larger process of self-realization. So self-realization has to be linked with your ethical responsibility, and that human social institution be reshaped to embody the condition that would make this knowledge and ethical commitment into practical historical forces. So now your self-realization has to come to its ethical responsibility. That ethical responsibility has to come back to your ethical commitment. One of the socio-ecology books, its conception of free nature focuses on the way in which human self-realization, culminating in creation of an ecological society, establishes a growing planetary realm of freedom. Point is that your infinite desires, your imagination has to be bring towards the principle of freedom in a positive way, and that can create humanity with adding a dimension of freedom, reason, and ethics to first to the non-human, that is nature, and raises evolution to a level of self-reflexibility. So the activity of human and human self-realization are or should be seen as essential to the achievement of freedom in nature. Freedom in nature, we should be in the center, and we should understand that, right? So when we talk about freedom in nature, means free nature is the spontaneous creative nature that has given rise to inter-race diverse system of self-relying life on this planet. The point is that this is because of the freedom of each and every organism, species, or law of the nature that gives diversity. It has also given rise to humanity itself, right? Because the human was, in the process of evolution, we are evolved in the last phase of evolution of life. And dialectical is humanity through interaction with all the other expression of this free activity and made us the complex beings that we are. This is also the complex beings also because of freedom of natural law of freedom. Okay, as necessary as it is for humanity to rectify, we misuse our principle that natural law of freedom. So that because of that, we have created disastrous disruption of natural processes, although we need to look back to restorative ecological practice that require a social ecology, and we need to understand and that we need to regain capacity for creative non-action for letting it be. Okay. So the conception of social ecological of freedom, is spontaneous creative order points to the need for a longer sphere of wild nature so that biodiversity can be maintained, evolutionary process can continue in their self-expression, not only in human culture and humanized nature, but in natural world substantially free from influence and control. That shows that when you talk about your imagination, your freedom, the same should be applied to other species also. It also implies the necessity not only for wilderness preservation. We are talking about, when we are talking about the problem and the issues, the loss of biodiversity, we're talking about preservation and conservation, but we have to understand the freedom of other species. So not only for our wilderness that preservation is necessary, but also for an extensive expansion of wilderness. That means relative wilderness areas where they have been largely destroyed. They have to be given freedom. We should not, not only preserving or conserving in particular, we have to expand, let them give, we have to give freedom to them. So in this view, ecological problem arise from deep-seated social problem. If you look at, then whatever ecological problem is created is from our deep-rooted social problem. And with a quest to dominate nature that results in the actual domination within human society. First, we have the quest to dominate nature, and then that laws of the tradition, the intention of dominating the nature started to dominate within our human society. And that created a social problem. That problems created ecological problem. As we know, whatever the world, it has happened across the world. First world was the big wars and different wars across the history of the world is domination, because to quest for domination, right? So in a sense, contemporary eco-philosophies in general assert that ecological problem, these problems stem from social ones. And this is also right. For example, if you look into deep ecology, it holds that ecological problems result from the social problem of anthropocentrism. Means we are looking for our own benefit only. Then another is ecofeminism, how it started, that also has a social issues. That ecological problem results from the social problem of patriarchal ideology and social structures. I will not explain so much, not much, because when we look into ecofeminism, also the ideology, it is a question of ideology, ideological, patriarchal, ideological, and social structure. So the causal priority in the creation of ecological crisis is due to, if you look into what has happened, what we have learned in the last few minutes is that it is because of social institution, what we imagine, what we try to dominate. That is capitalism or the state. Then ideology like dualism, patriarchal values. But both sides is in this deficit often seem less than dialectical in their approach. The roots of ecological crisis is not only institutional and ideological, but also psychological and cultural. If you look, this is because of human psychology, because of and another is, it is because of the human culture. So the critical approach to the issue, we can will avoid both one-sided materialistic explanation, means identifying economic exploitation or other material condition is the problem, and a one-sided idealism, then identifying a system of ideas like anthropocentrism is the problem. So indeed, the emergence of certain hierarchical institutions as the precondition for human destructiveness toward natural world. So we have to understand that the hierarchical institution system, right? It is not only about your ideology, it is not only about a materialist explanation. If you are trying to find out for a solution, we have to look from other alternative also. So this very institution could only emerge because of the whatever it has happened, because of that hierarchical institution. These are because the potential for domination, the values of hierarchy, objectification, what we talk about, power seeking that have roots in the human psyche, and which are actualized under certain historical condition. So whatever happened is because of, and these are the important characteristic because of that thing, the destruction was happened. Furthermore, as a system of domination developed, it does so through its dialectically interacting institutional, ideological, imaginary spheres, all of which are related to transhistorical human nature developed over a long history of species evolution. If you look from institutional or ideological imaginary spheres, everything was because of the natural law of history and the law of evolution of species, right? So any account of the origin of hierarchy and domination of their possible dissolution must therefore address at once the material, the institutional, psychological, and even ontological movement of both development of this phenomena and the process of reversing it. We have to reverse it. So according to a classic account, if then comes the ethics, what we are talking about, that ethical point of view, your self responsibility, the ethical responsibility, we have to take the ethical responsibility, right? So if ethic is the pursuit of the good life or self-realization, then politics is the pursuit of good life in common and self-realization for the whole community. The point is that when we are talking about the ethical responsibility, then we should think that we should also understand that politics is for the pursuit of the good life in common and self-realization for the whole community. It means we have to use the approach of politics for the good of the community. So a social ecology should affirm the political in this sense, but reinterprets its ecological terms. It reinterprets ecological terms. In ecology, you talk about the interaction between or among the different species and its non-living component, right? In the same way, when you talk about social ecology, we have to understand about that functioning between relation and function between different members of that's one side society, another side the nature. So in the same way, we have to investigate the ways in which we can increase the emergence of human, mutualistic, ecologically responsible institution in all areas of social life. So it is not only politics, but all areas of social interaction, including what we're talking about, the beginning of reproductionism and consumption, that production and consumption, then personal relationship, family life, child care, education, the arts, the modes of communication, spiritual life, ritual and celebration, recreation and play, and informal modes of cooperation to be political realms in the most profound sense. So each these are essential spheres in which we can develop our social beings and communal individuality, and in which a larger communitarian reality can find much of its basis. So such a conception of political requires that practice institution should be human in spirit and scale, life-affirming, creative, decentralized, non-hierarchical, rooted in a particularity of people in the place, and based on grassroots participatory democracy to the greatest degree of practical possibility. So then we have to look at social eco in terms of nomics. So it may be social, economics, that monetary value, the under is ecological value. So in view, because it is because of dominance, right? The human dominating everything. So in view of this dominance of the economic in contemporary society and the importance of economic in any society, a social ecology must devote considerable attention to the means of creating a socially and ecologically responsible system of production and consumption. We can have green economics that could have a major transformative effect on society, the creation of moral economy as a precondition for a just ecological society that requires further that producers, means one is production producers, that is explicitly agreed to exchange their product and services on terms that are not merely equitable or fair but supportive of each other. It's not only among ourselves, to other species also. So a social ecology as a holistic vision seeks to relate all phenomena to the larger direction of evolution and emergence in the universe as a whole. The point is you have to look at the relation between society and nature. It's a fabric. Within this context, it also examines the course of that planetary evolution as a movement towards increasing complexity and diversity in the progressive emergence of value. So a social ecology interprets planetary evolution and the realization of social and ecological possibilities as a holistic process rather than merely as a mechanism of adaptation. So when you talk about that existing society or whatever ecological conservation, we talk about adaptation. It's a mechanism of adaptation, but it is not. It is a holistic process. We must find out the possibilities of a holistic process, holistic approach. So this evolution can only be understood adequately by examining, means by understanding the interaction of mutual determination between species and species, between species and ecosystem, and between species, ecosystem, the earth as a whole. And by studying particular communities or societies, ecosystem is complex and developing wholes, means dynamism. So such examination reveals that the progressive unfolding of potentiality for, we're talking about freedom, that is self-organization, self-determination, self-realization, depends on the existence of symbiotic cooperation at all levels. So at all levels, they have their own freedom, but we have to understand the principle of freedom also. So we can therefore see striking degree of continuity in nature, so that the cooperative ecological society, that is the goal of social ecology, is found to be rooted in most of the basic level of being. We always say, don't become human being, become a being a human. In that way, we have to understand the thing. So this is all about, if you look into what we have studied, that infinite, whatever your desire is infinite, your dominating characteristic, and you have that imagination. All this component can be looked into culture, polity, social structure, economy, and ecological infrastructure. These are interrelated to each other. You cannot take out any of the component. If you have take out any of the component, the web will not work properly. So this is what I want to, discuss. I want to convey to our learners, that when we talk about sustainability, when we have to understand that basic foundation of socio-cultural system, we have to understand is social from the point of social ecology, and we have to understand the interlinkages of each and every component. That's all. So some of the references, or what I suggest you in Indian context, because today I do not look into the that how Indian systems, social system, and other system can bring interpret from ecological point of view. I do not talk in that way. So I suggest you to read the book Social Ecology, edited by uh, R. Guha, Ramchandra Guha. That's a good book. It will be very useful for all of you. And then a social ecology. This is you also can read this article. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Give me a minute. Okay.